Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. We are so excited to be here. Just to, kick things off, we wanted to take a minute to introduce ourselves and, hear from you guys. So as we introduce ourselves, actually, we would love if you all, wrote in the chat or, just take yourselves off of mute and, say your name, your position on campus, and, maybe your dream travel destination. So I can start. My name is Lizzie Kaufman. I am a program consultant here at EF, and I specialize in working with first-time faculty leaders. So, people who have never led a study abroad program before, but are super interested in it. And my dream travel destination is probably Greece.
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, and hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I'll echo that same sentiment. My name is John Regan. I'm a program consultant here at EF College Study in Boston. And after people work with Lizzie on their first program, the rest of the time that faculty partners are working with EF during their experience with us, then you'd be working with me. I work with the experienced faculty partners. My dream travel destination is Antarctica. I don't know when I'll get a chance to go there, but it's definitely on my bucket list.
Great, John. I can't say the same for myself. It's a little too cold, but I'm Brianna. I am a senior program consultant. And like Lizzie, I also work with first-time faculty leaders. And my dream travel destination is probably Thailand.
Awesome. So yeah, now we'd love to hear a little from you guys. So like I said, feel free to write in the chat, introduce yourselves. Would love to hear where you guys are interested in going to. But as you're doing that, these faces that you see here are just a few members of our team that you might come in contact with in your future partnerships, really with EF. Always like to just point out some soon-to-be familiar faces. So, and of course you can see my face, John, and Brianna down at the bottom. Before we, actually dive in, we did just want to say, if you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to, write them in the chat box or just unmute yourselves. We're definitely here for you guys. We want this to be a super fun and interactive and interesting session. So, we'll do some polls and some questions. So definitely participate. Awesome. So now that we, have introduced ourselves, let's dive in. As a little summary into EF, before we get into the agenda and the rest of the session, we are an international education company, and we partner with institutions all over the country to really help create institutional partnerships. And we really want to implement sustainable, accessible and diversified short-term faculty-led study abroad programs for your students, really no matter what background they might come from. So today we're going to spend most of our time together talking about how you guys can lead your students abroad and how we support you and other CBU faculty throughout that process. So we're going to go through 4 main areas, and you can see them here. But what a partnership with EF looks like, why study abroad is so important for your students, and of course how we can kind of plan a program during a COVID-19 world, and then really how to set it up on campus.
We are curious to learn from you what you're all most excited to learn about today. So if you wouldn't mind, they're numbered here. If you wouldn't mind throwing a number in the chat that correlates to what you are most interested in. So again, number 1 would be who is EF and how do we partner with CBU? Number 2, what is the impact of study abroad on your students' personal, professional, and academic growth? Third, what does planning study abroad look like right now in a COVID world? And then 4, specifically how to get a program set up on your campus.
Nice. Looks like we have some people interested to hear what the EF partnership looks like. Of course, COVID, how to set it up on campus. Awesome, awesome. We will definitely dive into all of those.
Yeah, great. See some really good feedback coming in, and things that folks are interested in. I hope we're going to get a chance to be able to talk about all of those. So to get us started, I just wanted to share a couple of quick notes about who we are, who EF is, and just to get a sense from everyone here with a show of hands, if you are able to use a reaction button or let us know in the chat. How many people here are already familiar with EF or any of EF's different products? Well, Garrett, I hope that you would be familiar with us. Seeing some feedback coming in there. Great, wonderful. So EF is the world's largest private education company. We were established over 50 years ago with one mission, and that's to open the world through education. And our founder's name is Bertil Hult, and he's actually still involved with EF, and it's his family who still runs the business today. Really, the genesis of EF came from a personal experience that Bertil had. He's originally from Sweden, and many years ago when he was a student in Sweden, he was learning English. However, Bertil suffers with dyslexia, and so he really struggled in the traditional classroom setting, really struggled with learning English. So he eventually left Stockholm and took time to travel to London, where he picked up the language really quickly by being immersed in an English-speaking country. And he fell in love with this idea of experiential learning. So that's basically why he ended up coming away from that experience, believing that really everybody should have that immersive learning experience. And so out of that, that idea and out of that experience, EF was born. Kind of noted on this map here, you'll see where we have EF offices. EF now has one of the most expansive networks in the world. We have operations in over 115 countries, and we are having plans to grow. So EF's scale, in our networks power exclusive and authentic access to sites, structures, places, people, and it includes also partnerships with the best value vendors out there in the travel industry. So everything from Versailles to the Nobel Museum to our own schools and airlines and hotels, we generally are able to keep the cost low for our travelers and to make the experiences more accessible with that type of network. Another thing that's really cool is that recently EF became involved with a couple of different causes, initiatives, and programs. And some of those include, and it's one of the more exciting ones, is a partnership with Apple to build what is now the world's largest online English school with over 2 million global learners. And that's called EF English Live. And additionally, since 1988, EF has provided language and education services to 6 different Olympic Games. And we were still planning on being the official partner for language and training services in Tokyo. However, with the Olympics not happening, we are definitely looking forward to being there and providing those services next year. Of course, over the years, we've developed and changed since Bertil first started EF. Now we really are defined across 3 different core pillars. And you can see here on the slide, those are language in schools, study abroad and cultural exchange, and educational travel. And all 3 of those pillars are really following the mission of breaking down barriers of language, culture, and geography through that mission of opening the world through education.
Great. Thanks, John. So before we keep going, are there any questions so far? I know a few people trickled in kind of in the middle of that. So definitely feel free to write in the chat if there's something that you want us to elaborate on. But yeah, we really want to go through kind of what this all means for us, at EF College Study and how we think about the programs, that we actually build.
So I imagine that everybody here today joined because you're at least at some level curious about study abroad on campus, or maybe you've had experience with study abroad either through a different provider or yourself personally. College Study focuses specifically on the short-term faculty-led study abroad model. And for those who are not familiar with that model, what we do is we work directly with faculty members and professors on college campuses, really to build out these 1 to 3 week study abroad programs that can either be part of your curriculum, part of a course, or as a standalone experiential learning opportunity for students to travel on. And really the reason that our niche is the short-term faculty-led study abroad is because it is more accessible to students from a cost and time perspective. The accessibility of that model, the short-term faculty-led, actually makes it the fastest growing segment of study abroad because we're meeting our learners where they are today. Whether those are non-traditional college students, people who are trying to get a study abroad experience while also trying to manage a family or a job as well. And it really is important in business today just because the traditional study abroad programs are becoming less and less accessible to students. And so really what we were finding without having a short-term faculty-led study abroad experience available to students, too many students are choosing not to experience international travel, really because of the cost, time, and other factors that play into what are typically factors in a traditional study abroad longer-term model. So we build the programs to give students both the academic and the cultural experiences, blended in a way that supports learning from the on-campus or within a course, and with learning about the world around them to drive the global competencies. So really we have, on two different sides here, the academic side where we have educators with PhDs helping to design and give us perspective on our programs during the design phase. We have a former dean or professor building assessment tools to measure impact and those outcomes that we know are so critical in today's world. We have expert consultants who work with you to navigate connecting an experience back to your course. And we offer a wide range of industry engagement experiences for programs that are tied to specific disciplines as well. Now, on the cultural side, which we really believe is essential and provides context for the more discipline-specific or academic components of our programs, we have the best tour directors, they're storytellers, cultural experts across the globe. These people are specifically trained to work with a college audience. We have the access to the best sites in the world due to our extensive networks, and we're able to get that unique and streamlined access to a lot of places that may not be available to travelers on other programs through other providers. We do provide these unique and authentic experiences throughout the whole program. So that's from housing to meals to interaction with locals. And then lastly, we also are consciously aware that personal exploration and connection is important, which is why we specifically build in the key free time moments for your students to create their own experience and to be able to build some more of the soft skills that we know are so valued by employers today. So while all of our programs blend these different academic and cultural elements, we have a variety of programs that align to the degree of discipline focus that you're looking for and that meet your students' needs. We help you to identify both the discipline-specific and the cultural weight by breaking down our programs into 4 basic categories. The first of those is the intercultural focused programs. The second is the discipline-specific programs. We have service learning programs as well. And then lastly, we have a growing custom design program portfolio also. All 4 of those programs span all continents except Antarctica, so I am out of luck there apparently. How's this sounding so far? I'd be happy to get into later perhaps a little bit more about what those different programs all entail. But to summarize, these program itineraries not only include the components of travel, but as a provider, we are equal parts logistics and academic integration with personal and professional benefits for you and your students. This visual here actually highlights almost everything that's included in a program with EF. So that's from round trip airfare to your hotels, in-country transportation. Our operations team handles the planning of all the details. You'll also have the support of your program consultant, like myself, or Lizzie or Bree, who helps you plan your program from the very start and prepares you all the way until your departure. Upon arriving at your destination, you'll be met by a 24/7 EF tour director who will remain with you throughout the entire program and is the person who will handle all of the logistics on the ground. And if any issues arrive, you'll have the assistance of our 24/7 emergency response team and a $50 million per incident liability coverage that's standard with EF's programs. So in addition to the planning and logistical support, we also provide the academic support, which I will get into shortly. And here you can see how a program like this could ultimately come to life, blending both cultural and discipline-focused experiences into a single program.
Awesome. So before we dive into this next section about the value of study abroad, I would first love to ask, and you can respond to this in the chat or feel free to take yourself off mute, just a few questions to get a sense of how you teach in the classroom. We, as John mentioned, design all of our programs with certain outcomes in mind. So would love to hear from you. What goals do you have that you want your students to accomplish before they leave your classroom at the end of a semester?
And maybe while folks are thinking about that, I saw Rolando, you had a question about explaining the custom design programs, and I'd be happy to speak to that really quickly. Basically, what are custom programs, how that would kind of come into play and whether we would determine that a custom program would be the best fit is after you are working with and having a conversation with your program consultant about what your goals are for the program, the program consultant and yourself will talk about how perhaps existing programs within our portfolio might lend themselves to your particular focus or your particular goals, whether they're academic or otherwise. If we find that the types of things that you want to weave into your experience aren't necessarily covered in one of our standard kind of pre-designed itineraries, then what we can do is start talking about how we could build a program specifically from the ground up that relies on and builds off of the relationships and arrangements that we have with our vendor partners, but also really incorporating the types of experiences and focus that's important to you and that's best going to serve your students in their development. So it's a bit of a longer process initially, and it's one of those things where we would really find out from you what it is that you ultimately want to accomplish. We would approach that with a nothing is impossible kind of attitude. And then we would start to, on our end, have conversations with our customized team to look at the specifics of how we could actually turn those ideas, turn those requests into reality. And then it's just really working, back and forth to be able to kind of fine tune the experience until we arrive at a complete custom focused program.
Great summary, John. Well, yeah, so just to bring it back a little bit to the value, to your students. So our work with you, really goes beyond just the program consultation part. So yes, we've kind of mentioned this, but, we work with you from the day we start talking. So, for example, today to the day that you return back from your program and really beyond that. So, we want to make sure that your program is the most successful and well suited for, your environment as possible. So we're going to get into some of those specifics now, because the main objective of these programs, similarly, I'm sure to all of your classes, is that they bring some type of value, to your students.
Okay, great. So, additionally, we believe, and it's proven out through data, that the impact of short-term study abroad is really just as beneficial as the other study abroad models, specifically as it comes to the skills that are needed for the personal, professional, and academic growth that we have expectations of our students for. The skills learned from the international experiences are helping to solve for not only student needs, but the university needs as well, and as well as the employment needs in the industry. I know that we talk a lot about that as being one of the benefits of this short-term study abroad model, So the programs we build with faculty members every day directly deliver on what not only students are looking for, but institutions like yours and employers. And you can see that through some of the statistics that are shared with them. 85% of students who go to college to get a better job, 97% of study abroad alumni got a job within 1 year. 80% of college presidents are concerned about enrollment goals and retaining and graduating their students. 90% of students who studied abroad have graduated in 5 years as compared to 58.6% who did not. And 92% of employers are looking for the skills and traits that students develop in our programs. 84% of study abroad alumni felt that studying abroad helped them build valuable job skills. We also have all the sources for that in the event that you would like to reference that further.
Yeah, great point, great point. So again, I am clearly not a professor, but I imagine when you're all building your courses, you start off by thinking about, the outcomes that you want to achieve. So the same is true for us when we build these programs. So, when we do this, we keep these competencies kind of top of mind. So confidence and curiosity, empathy and self-awareness, global perspective and cultural knowledge, and adaptability and relatability. These skills that our programs develop are really critical, to bridging any field of study to a successful career path. So, if you're nursing students or science or, English literature, it doesn't matter. These skills will help you succeed, no matter what future career you might have. So we've begun assessing these competencies across our programs and are seeing consistent growth, in these critical soft skills. I also wanted to say, these aren't just pleasantries for us. These skills have been validated by what we hear from companies, who are actually seeking employees that are strong in these characteristics. And we really help your students actually build these by providing you with sort of a learning framework as part of, every program. So one thing that we're super excited about is our assessment tool that measures these skills and outcomes and, the academic, personal, and professional growth impacts of students' experiences while they're learning abroad. So this is called our Cultural Intelligence Scale. And it can be used as both an assessment tool, but also a learning tool as well. As sort of the assessment tool piece, it allows us to really quantify the growth and assess the development of global competencies during, the EF program. These can then, easily be shared with accreditation bodies, other stakeholders on campus, things like that. And then as a learning tool, it really gives us a tangible framework to help maximize the, intercultural learnings that really are happening the moments, before the program, during the program, and of course after, because the learning doesn't really ever stop. Awesome. So now that we kind of walked through everything that, goes into our programs and what they look like, we want to show a really short video to give you guys kind of an idea of how it comes to life for your students.
Nothing can compare to you actually being here and actually living it. It seems like something out of a movie. It's actually taking place, and I'm actually doing this right now. I'm actually all the way in Ireland, 3,000 miles away, just living a dream right now. It's the first time I've ever seen the Atlantic Ocean. I live in Chicago. We don't have an ocean. It's kind of overwhelming to be able to see something like this. It pushes you to become more the person that you're meant to be. Because I feel like everybody here has a calling, and we're meant to do something great.
Awesome. So yeah, hope you guys like that video. Again, it's super short clip. It's just a great way to kind of see what your program could look like on the ground, but also through the eyes of your students. Before we keep going, are there any questions so far? I don't think anything super new popped up in the chat, but again, just let us know. Awesome. Well, now, I'm sure you guys are all wondering how you can actually plan a program during this crazy COVID world that we're in. So we want to spend, the next few minutes really walking through kind of a quick overview of our protection and safety offerings that we have for you and your students, but that are on all of our programs. So something that I think is super important to point out is traveling anywhere, at any time is never 100% safe. However, traveling with someone like EF is just about as safe as you can get, especially, during a time like this. So as we mentioned previously, we have teams all across the world to help ensure the success and the safety of your program. But even deeper, we have dedicated teams for every aspect of your program. For example, we have a flight team who ensures that they're finding you the most direct route, to and from your program for the best price, of course. We have an operations team, who makes sure that everything is going to run super smoothly logistically. We have a 24/7 emergency support team. God forbid someone gets sick or doesn't feel well while you guys are actually abroad and you can't reach your program consultant because there's a time difference. You will always have support. And then, we have a safety and incident response team who, if there was any problem while you guys were over there, they would follow up with you time and time again until it is resolved and you guys feel totally confident and comfortable to, keep going. And then, of course, we have the tour directors who we've already mentioned a little bit. But really all of this is kind of just to say, you're not alone in any of this. We have people for you, supporting you every hour of every day, really, really everywhere around the world. So another thing that we wanted to note is that, we are only going to travel when we know that it is completely safe to do so. And we've been reflecting a ton on what changes we need to make to travel safely again, given the world's climate. So students, this has just been proven time and time again, year after year, that they need time to plan for all of these programs. But even more so now than ever, which is why, recruiting your students and getting the word out about your programs, as early as this fall is going to be so important, even if these programs aren't taking place until 2022. So, we wanted to talk a little bit about how we're protecting students, investments when they enroll and how we're creating contingency plans before and during your program. So I definitely don't want to harp too much on all of these details. We can definitely dive deeper into that. But the first one that I wanted to let you guys know about is our COVID Peace of Mind program. Essentially, all this means is, if COVID conditions remain when you guys are supposed to, be traveling, your group, feels unsafe doing so, we have options. We can reroute your program, we can postpone your date, we can issue travel vouchers that students can use, for another EF program, or, we can always decide to cancel the program and go down the route of getting some partial cash refunds. We also have, two different insurance policies. One that is more of a basic level, and it kind of covers against all normal things, you would think of when traveling abroad. We have a second, newer, more advanced option, if you will, that, encompasses everything sort of that baseline protection offering has, but it also allows, students or your travelers to have, a say in it for themselves, and they can cancel off of the program up to 24 hours before you all are supposed to depart, with this insurance. And lastly, we have a worry-free enrollment period for your students. So they can begin, making payments and planning for their future, knowing that they are kind of in this safe zone. So they can keep making their payments and get themselves ahead, knowing that they can cancel and get their money back penalty-free, through May 1st of 2020. And kind of like I mentioned, this is definitely jumping ahead in the process. We just wanted to give you, a sneak peek that, so if, leading a program is of interest, we'll definitely walk through all of these in much greater detail. We just want you guys to know that you're covered, your students are covered in kind of every aspect. I know that can be a little confusing. What questions do you guys have? Oh, Garrett. Yeah. Okay. We're just getting. Yeah. So this is a great example. Garrett's question is asking, what would it look like if a student was to be infected with COVID while they were on a trip? So first, if there were huge outbreaks in whatever country, we would probably not send you. We will not send any program to a country that is a level 3 or level 4 travel advisory. So if it happens that, the country was a level 1 or level 2 and it, just bad luck, the student does happen to get COVID, we would, a couple of things. So first, we have to follow the safety regulations of that host country. So whatever their rules are, we would have to follow. However, if students had, even the base insurance, we would, of course, be able to, reimburse for any hospital, doctor visits, any of that. And we'd also be able to, fly family members out or, something like that while they recovered and got better. So far, this is all very much a work in progress. We've never been in a situation before, even when we had groups traveling kind of during that questionable time, at the end of last winter, spring. So we've never had to run into this type of scenario before. But, if it was to happen, again, with all the help of our safety teams, the insurance, all of that, as well as, the in-country help, the student would hopefully be totally fine. I hope that answers your question, Garrett, a little bit more. But yeah, so the last thing that we kind of wanted to mention about, planning during COVID is EF has recently received the Safe Travel Stamp, which is actually given out by the World Travel Tourism Council. If you're not familiar with them, don't worry. This council, kind of pairs up with the government and health experts. And they came together to create this stamp for companies who exhibit proper safety protocols in response to COVID. And each set of protocols takes into account, current World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control guidelines. And for example, for your programs, to kind of put it into perspective, and Garrett, this might help a little bit as well. We will only work with airlines, hotels, transportation services, restaurants, vendors, activity suppliers, you name it, that are compliant with enhanced hygiene and social distancing standards aligned with the local regulations. And to that point, if you do have any questions about the details of any of these components, about your future program or specific safety protocols we're following on our end, please don't hesitate to ask us now or, of course, as we continue these conversations, as you begin to set up your programs. Awesome. So finally, before we wrap up and, save some time for questions, wanted to quickly talk about next steps and how to actually get this into motion. So I know most of you have your video off, which is totally fine. Feel free to do the little reaction buttons or just write in the chat. But just based on, this short little introduction to EF, how many people are, interested in still pursuing this? Awesome. Great. Super exciting. So this process is actually super, super easy. A question we oftentimes get from faculty is, where do I start? And this was kind of the perfect thing. So it really begins with having a conversation with, us here at EF. But Garrett English is actually here as well from campus. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he is phenomenal. I'll let him introduce himself and speak a little bit to the school side of getting programs set up. But no matter, if this is your very first time ever considering study abroad, or, you've led 10 programs on your own, but now are considering to work with, a vendor, we are super excited, and we will definitely help you, find the best program. So Garrett, to pass it off to you for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Lizzie. So I think I've met most of you. If I haven't, my name's Garrett English. I'm the Director of Academic Engagement at CBU. So any of the faculty academic trips that go out, kind of helping support those experiences. So basically the process is, like Lizzie said, speak with EF, do some research, find out where you'd really like to take students. And after that, you can schedule a meeting with myself. You also want to try to get this cleared with your dean or your department. So if you are looking into this and then you decide to go forward, make sure you're also kind of coordinating that with your department. So they're aware of that, they're in the loop. But definitely, reach out to myself, and I can help support you guys, whether that's connecting you with the right resources or doing some of that research as well. A lot of times faculty actually like to go on site visits as part of that research. So, flying out to New Zealand to go scout some of the sites and kind of see what the experience would be like for students. That's really helpful in kind of envisioning that program. EF is really great with putting together custom programs. So there's a lot that goes into that. And when you guys meet with myself, I can kind of talk about the budget and different things, but basically you're kind of planning out all the details logistically, which is awesome working with EF because they're going to help, put up that, or help set up a lot of those details. But you're putting together a budget, you're putting the itinerary together, logistics, and academics. So we do want it to be in line with, there should be an academic component. So we have a global practicum course that we've developed in a number of departments, and there's quite a few faculty that you could probably speak to kind of find out more about that. But basically we want to make sure students have an opportunity to get credit for an experience, and they're learning something in their major or their field of study. So finally, I would say, there's a lot more details, but the proposals are typically due March 1st, and that's all through our online system, Teradata. And so there's quite a few questions, but that can kind of help you guide that process. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to work with you guys on anything.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Garrett. And after, this session is over in just a little bit, I will send out a follow-up, email covering all of the information we discussed. And I can also put in some pointers on, next steps to move this process forward with both EF and, on your end. But yeah, before we wrap up, what questions do you guys have? We wanted to save some time to, talk, discuss, brainstorm some ideas for those who are interested.
So Lizzie, while we're waiting for questions, I do have something I've been thinking of and having some discussions with faculty. If there was maybe faculty are comfortable going somewhere domestically within the U.S., what does that look like with EF? If maybe let's keep it closer to home, what programs are out there?
Yeah, great question. I'm not sure, John or Bree, if either of you want to talk through this a little bit.
Sure. So we, first of all, just launched 3 new itineraries that are, technically domestic, 2 to Canada and 1 to Puerto Rico. So those keep it a little bit more local, no overseas flights necessary. The Canadian itineraries are, one's to Vancouver and the other is to Montreal and Quebec City. So we have those options, but we also have the ability to kind of partner with our Explore America division, which typically build domestic programs all over the US for middle school and high school students, but we're able to customize them up to the college level based on wherever it is that you want to go.
Yeah, so there was a question that just came in the chat that what programs do we have for students studying public health? Great question. We have tons of programs that would be great for these students. I know, probably the three of us worked on, different programs. What's really awesome, and I know you actually joined a little bit late, so you might have missed this part of the presentation, but we have a whole different array of options and kind of focuses of our programs. So if public health is, your sort of focus, would love to connect. We can definitely dive deeper into, what a public health program could look like for you and your students, for sure. Rolando, great question that I saw you just put into the chat. Is there a country that, you have kind of top of mind right now that, isn't currently on our travel list? Or is this more just hypothetical, Israel? Great question. Yeah. So I'm not sure, again, Bree and John, if you want to talk about that. I haven't worked on ever putting together an Israel program.
Yeah. So as of now, we don't offer an Israel program. We did a few years ago, and actually another division within EF, our Go Ahead Tours division, who they build programs for adult travelers or families. So it's a little bit different than ours. They do have programs to Israel because we partner with colleges and universities and are sending students abroad. We do have stricter safety protocol than the Go Ahead division, for instance, and we adhere strictly to the U.S. Department of State travel advisory and can only travel to countries that are a level 1 or level 2.
Great. Yeah, and I saw another. Sorry, Lizzie. I can take this one if you like.
No, you go.
Yeah, so
Great.
the question came in, how long is a typical program or not typical, and the size of the group? So we do specialize, our area really is in that 1 to 3 week kind of time frame. I think our sweet spot is probably around 10 to 14 days is what we see a lot of our faculty partners decide to travel on as far as the itineraries are concerned. Programs may have standard lengths. However, our faculty partners or even individual travelers are able to customize if they want to add stay ahead or stay behind options. And certainly with our customized programs, we can really take a look at developing a program that is perhaps longer or even shorter than what our typical ones would be. The size of the group it's going to be a little bit different depending on where in the world you're traveling. Ordinarily speaking, our groups, we'll see average group sizes being really anywhere probably between about 10 to 16 people per actual, faculty partner who's bringing a group. However, sometimes if those groups choose to share travel with another group from around the United States, you could see group sizes getting larger, closer to about 40 students or 40 total travelers. But really, that's more for European destinations. If you start looking at some of our Latin and South American programs, the group sizes might be a little bit smaller just based on the transportation that's available down there and the roads infrastructure. But I mean, that's definitely one of those conversations that you would have with your program consultant is about your anticipated group size, really to find out, what the best type of travel model would be for you.
Just wanted to throw some fun pictures on the side. These are all from some of our programs that we've run over the years, as well as our Boston headquarters, which can also be seen behind me. But we are going to be sticking around until noon for anyone else who has remaining questions. But if you don't have any more questions, you can feel free to head out, and either Lizzie or I will follow up with you via email to find some time, perhaps next week, to chat more about your specific interests. But again, we'll be here for the next 15 minutes to answer any more questions you have.
I love that you have the sunset right in the background too. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Miss the office.
And then John's in the lobby of the same building.
Yeah. Love it.
Thank you guys so much for putting this on. I did get a message from Rolando. I think he meant to send it to everyone, but he just sent it to me. But he said, great presentation. Thank you so much. I need to leave for class.
Thank you for coming.
Oh.
And I have some question. I originally came from China. I know how important it is, have some experience going to international. And also, I have received email from your organization for years. But this year, I saw Greg English's name is there. So I think, oh, probably somehow university-wise. So that's why I start to, get interested and haven't got a chance to check it out yet. But so wondering, you accept, we propose program, but do you accept us host any program? Do you, line up program like that and have someone come to visit us and or stay on campus here? Did that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Our division specifically focuses on bringing U.S. students abroad. We have other divisions that within EF that are more of an exchange experience, not specifically in the case where we would arrange students, international students to come to an American university, but there are different exchange options. If you personally were interested in hosting international students, that is available. So we can certainly send out more information about those exchange divisions, but to answer your question, we in College Study don't do exchange programs.
Thank you, Brianna.
Yeah.
And also related to assessment, I know assessment, a lot of time we need to require the program just to put into the, so I don't know, is this program typically required for a major or some curriculum? I don't know, probably I should ask Greg English. Just don't know, is this program normally is a required program or just optional?
And I can speak into that.
Okay.
So that's a really good question. So it just depends. I think a lot of our faculty, they build a course for international travel. So, maybe they have an existing course and they create a global component. And so students can get credit, but typically it's optional. There's a couple programs that they do have it as a requirement. And I'd say the main course for that, or the main program, is probably the School of Business. They have their MBA program that students basically have to choose between an international trip or an international internship. So there's only a couple programs, I think, at the moment that are mandatory. Most of it's just kind of like an optional opportunity for students to get credit.
I see.